to accomplish in its hearings and so forth. And then you might just lead off by quoting these statistics if you want to, and then we can go into it.
Is more militant in the organization.
Now, one of the biggest problems in Fort Worth is some type of municipal inferiority complex on the part of our people. And we have a population in Fort Worth that is extremely susceptible to psychological variations. As an example, if you go talk to the average man on the street today, he'll tell you that General Dynamics has laid off everybody, that it's down to 12,000 population. The truth of the matter is, General Dynamics at the end of this month is going to have a net reduction of only 1,000 employees from when Frank Davis made that announcement. By the end of 1970, in December, they will only have a net reduction of 2,000 employees. December 31st, we're projecting they're going to have between 25,000 and 26,000 employees at that plant.
I just don't feel that any type of a superficial thing is in hair or dress has any relationship whatsoever to a person's professional competence or professional integrity, for that matter.
The schools are having their dress codes, and we need to fit into their particular pattern of dress. Naturally, we would like to present a good front to the youngsters for whom we're responsible.
I feel like this. I feel that if we are going to require students to have dress codes, then I think we should have something to set examples of. I don't think we should require them to not wear a beard and then we wear one. We should set examples if we're going to require them to have a dress code.
Would you cut your sideburns and shave off your mustache?
I would, but I really wouldn't like to do it.
We'll go with the same starting lineup. We're very much encouraged by the play of some of our backup people right now. Ralph Neely, I thought, had an excellent football game at a new position, and this is, of course, we're real excited about this. Bobby Hayes performed well in the ball game. I feel that Craig Martin, who is coming out of his slump, I think he's out of it right now. I think he's throwing very well, and he's, of course, ready to come back in there anytime. So we feel like we're coming along very well.
Besides the Neely performance and Bob Hayes' performance on some of his past plays, what observations can you make from the New York game?
Well, I think the thing that impressed me mostly was our defensive team, because we've needed this so long that to have a defensive team that can turn the game around, and this is what happened in the second half. Cliff Harris had a great game, and he made a couple of key interceptions, recovered a fumble. And this is what you've got to have to win in the NFL. You've got to have a defensive team that can turn a game around. And this is the strongest point in our football team from the New York game.
What about St. Louis?
Well, St. Louis is a team that is a good football team. It's the best team that we'll play up till now. They beat Washington, another good football team, and they have a lot of talent. They know they must win this ball game or they're two behind, and they don't want that to happen. So I expect that we'll have the toughest game that we'll have.
If Dave Edwards is unable to start, who will replace him?
D.D. Lewis will come in as his replacement. We feel like linebacker is probably one of our strongest positions. We have excellent players in almost every position there and backup, so we're very fortunate to have this type of people.
How bad is the situation at this time?
Well, at this time, it's not too bad, but of course you've got to look ahead a little bit. At the moment, I think that 1 out of 14 of the people in our mental institutions are under the age of 21. It's some statistics to the effect, though, that by the year 1975, now that's only 5 years away, there'll be 1 out of 4 of the people in our mental institutions will be under the age of 21 years old.
Jay, I would say that the proliferation of hardware, or that is the desire of agencies and schools to buy more hardware, has been the biggest problem. Of course, this increased the cost of state government, and it has forced us to a position of wanting to combine as many of these functions and as many of the hardware as possible so that we can get the best utilization of each piece of hardware.
In other words, you feel that the state could get by with fewer instead of more computers.
There's no question about that, yes.
Is there any capability that's not being utilized by the various state departments now that could be utilized with one central computer with expert programmers?
Yes. One thing is we don't share information between agencies. And a lot of agencies need the same information about, say, a person in welfare programs. They may be involved in different areas of welfare and in different agencies. And this information is not traded now, and by having information systems between these agencies, we would have better information about the people, more information to work with these people, and of course save tax dollars.
Well, I think in this particular case that when you have a committee such as this, when our safety expert tells us that we need stronger codes, that you have to give him very careful consideration because he is our expert and he's the man that's qualified to give us the answers.
The committee has until the last of October to make a recommendation to the City Council. If at that time they recommend that the building code be left as it is, do you think there's a chance the council might not accept it?
Well, there's always that possibility, Phil. I think that the city manager will get the recommendation from the Building Code Advisory Committee, and then he'll make his own recommendation to the City Council, and then at that time I think that we'll have to make a decision.
Could be the reason why Texas has not been plagued with racial violence like some of the other states?
I think it's because we recognized many years ago that we needed to work out solutions to this problem. And I know that they have been worked out as we've gone along. Now, after I became the governor of this state, I didn't publicize this because I didn't want the youth of our state to feel that I was using them for political purposes, because I was not. We had in the governor's office, while I was serving my first term, the leadership of all the student bodies in all of our colleges, state or denominational. We wanted them to know that the lines of communication were open. They came to Austin on 5 consecutive Saturdays. We met with all of them. We listened to what they thought were the problems on their community. And we believe, not only with students, but we believe that if we keep the lines of communication open between all of the ethnic groups, all of your different professions, all of the leaderships in our communities, then we can resolve a crisis before it ever comes about.
Our people have always been anxious to make the most of our potential, which is rare, to say the least, being located midway between Dallas and Fort Worth as we are. And they've been eager to make public improvements properly timed, properly designed, so that our community can be a great place in which to live and rear our families and to work.
We have called for the redirection of this company's efforts once before. We now call for the officers and directors of TI to resign. We want them replaced by people who will be responsible to the stockholders' investment, responsible to the employees so that further layoffs can be prevented, and responsible to the community so that more than $50 million will not again be taken from the Dallas economy. For these reasons, we will be picketing and leafleting TI on the behalf of the stockholders, employees, and the Dallas community.
We feel we need Reverend Jackson to come in at this point because there are so many issues and so many problems existing in the Southwest that we would like to have one of our national figures come in and take a closer look at it.
But isn't Mr. Jackson more militant than the SELC has been noted to be?
Well, I would say you would have to ask Mr. Jackson that.
Well, do you feel a man who has been labeled a militant in some areas should come to Dallas?
I don't think Dallas should be a closed society. I think you have enough militants in downtown Dallas and the courthouse to legitimatize bringing anybody into the city.
Mr. Jackson will not distribute bread in the city of Dallas, but will he stick a thorn in its side?
I think there's a thorn already here in downtown. Nobody can bring a problem to a city. The problem is already here. Maybe Reverend Jackson can bring a solution, but he won't bring no problems. The problem's already here.
But will he bring a peaceful solution?
That's something that the people of Dallas will have to decide, not Reverend Jackson.
You don't think he will have anything to do with whether or not it's peaceful?
If the soul is left in darkness, sins will be committed. The guilty one is not he who commits the sin, but rather he who creates the darkness.
Jim, that's a very good question. I think the time is fast approaching when we have to have modular construction to meet the tremendous demand for homes. The post-World War II burgeoning mass of young couples, earlier retirement ages, more Social Security and pensions are demanding that people on fixed incomes can have quality homes at a low cost.
Most people, when they think of a modular home, think of a mobile home. How related are they?
Today, a mobile home, for example, could never qualify for FHA financing or a Southern Building Code, meet Southern Building Code requirements. So there's a vast difference. Our hope is that we will be building eventually mobile and modular homes of equal strength and permanence. And by the beginning of next year, our modular homes will have Southern Building Code approval and FHA financing.
idea what he was dealing with. He did not know why the driver ran, and he did not know that Felix was a juvenile until after he caught him. The father of the wounded boy, Frank Felix of 9859 Brockback, voluntarily told investigating officers at the hospital that his son had smoked marijuana, had taken speed, was a habitual truant, and that he had committed the boy at one time to the Gatesville Reformatory as an incorrigible.
What's your opinion on this? Should they get out of the filmmaking business, in your opinion?
I can't really comment on it. I know that we're in dire need of product. It would seem to me that the problem that faces television now is that because of the shortage of movie product that these made-for-television movies are filling, that we're getting some films on the air now that have no place in the home on the television screen. They may be fine for the theaters, but not for the home. And we ran one just about a week ago called Hurry Sundown. It was an adult-only movie. It was not properly edited by the network. And as I say, they're down at the bottom of the barrel now, so now they're looking at pictures that I don't think they should even look at for television exposure.
If the networks were forced out of the filmmaking business, do you see the film industry per se filling that void?
Yes, I see them filling it, but they still have only that same customer to go to. They have to go to the networks and hopefully have them lease that product.
Buses could handle the same number of people, and one bus takes up only the space of about 3 cars. The crowding of streets would obviously be reduced in direct proportion to the number of us who overcome that too-good-to-ride-the-bus attitude. The excuses heard most often for not riding public conveyances are it's inconvenient, takes too long, or costs too much. For the sake of study, Channel 8 Special Projects field producer Reggie Ward, Jr. and I took the Fort Worth to Dallas Turnpike Express bus as an example. At 8 o'clock this morning, bus number 1083 rolled out of the bus terminal in Fort Worth. 37 minutes later, the doors opened in downtown Dallas. Driving legally, you could only beat that time by about 3 minutes in your own car. The effect of too many cars flooding into downtown Fort Worth could be readily detected on the West Freeway this morning. Every major artery in both cities looks exactly the same. They're jam-packed. And when the cars all get to town, the story gets worse. The latest figures available for Dallas are 1964, but even then, the 45% of the central business district was devoted either to streets or parking lots. That's 161 acres of concrete serving no purpose except to hold your car till you're ready for the homeward battle in the afternoon traffic. The best possible study of what happens with too many cars in too small a space is Europe. Here, too, you can find people who have been forced to solve the problem the only sensible way. Europeans, thankfully, have fewer hang-ups about such things as riding trams and buses. They have no choice, and neither, very soon, shall we. In this country, we've come to view trolleys as quaint... Channel 8 News reporting.
Amendment 3 would simply permit large corporate farmers and timber companies to hold on to valuable land for speculative purposes, practically tax-free. The legislature would be permitted to pass laws requiring tax assessors to consider something other than market value. The small farmer and homeowner is already overburdened. This inequity would make their taxes even more intolerable. Rather than encourage farmers to remain on the farm, it would actually drive more of them to the city. Counties and school districts would suffer. The land speculator would capitalize on development, just as the notion suited him. It's a bad amendment, and it should be defeated. It offers help to the very few at the expense of millions. The present tax structure of many counties would be wrecked.
I think the Joint Conference Committee approach to it and our methods of making our budget are absolutely wrong, as I point out in this paper. When 10 men can get back in the back room and add items to the budget that have never been discussed by your representative or my representative, 97 million in the last session that were the Joint Conference Committee, over and above which was in the governor's budget or anybody else's budget. That is wrong. And if you look over a period of years, We cite the Wheatley Park incident in '63, but if you look over a period of years, this is where the trade out and the pork barrel items come into the budget. We can't afford pork barrel items in our budget anymore.
Officer Dorn and the youth, neither aware of the other's presence, all but collided at the fence. Felix tripped at the fence and Officer Dorn fell on top of it, and his service revolver discharged. Felix jumped up and ran for approximately 30 yards before falling to the ground. Officer Dorn caught up with Felix at this point, and he informed Officer Dorn that he had been shot. The driver escaped. An ambulance was summoned, and Felix was taken to Parkland Hospital. En route to the hospital, Felix told Officer R.L. Smith that Officer Dorn did fall on top of him when he tripped at the fence. It was determined later that the pickup truck had been stolen sometime after 10 p.m. Monday night.
I think this is going to have an adverse effect on the Middle Eastern classes because of the fact that President Nasser was very popular, and lately he had accepted the American initiative of attempting to stop shooting, so to speak, and start talking. Unfortunately, many difficulties were put in the way of these discussions. And I am not accusing, but mainly by Israel, the story of the missiles. The ambassador of the United Arab Republic last Sunday on First Nation said that we are ready to withdraw should Israel would give the United States assurance that they will not carry out a preemptive attack on Egypt. And the answer of Mr. Iban said, I'm sorry, we can't give any assurance at the present time.
The whole of this campus and all it represents is truly greater than the sum of its parts. And yet, we will dedicate all the parts. The buildings to their intended use, the faculty to their purposes, the community to its continued support, and the students to their earnest efforts.